Hello and welcome to World Tanks with me, Jack the Ripper. This is my review of the T34 American Tier 8 Premium Heavy Tank.
Right, well now, let's have a look at the T34. Now the T34 is an interesting tank. It used to be the Tier 9 American Heavy Tank, but they took it out and replaced it with the M103, and they made it a Tier 8 Premium. Now, from the front, and I've unfortunately sold my T29, so I actually can't do the comparison really with it, but that is the tank to compare it to, not this thing. Although I will comment, the hull is very, very similar, but it's more like a T29 in every other way. The turret is the turret of a T29. I was having a conversation with my friend, and we're both pretty sure that this is the T29 stock turret. This is not the upgraded one. I will admit, from the side, it definitely looks like one, but it's not as sleek. It's too rounded and too fat. It is definitely the stock one. Now, when you're looking at this tank from the front, obvious weak point, that machine gun port. One of Wargaming's favourite weak spots is machine gun ports on pretty much every tank. Whether it be the T32, it's the same. The Tiger 2, it's the same. The T34, it's the same. And if you look at, as I say, on things like this new KB5 that's come out, that little machine gun up there is the biggest weak spot I'm aware of. I don't know about the two at the front. I've not shot at one there. And to be honest, if they're in one of these and they're using it right, they'll try and be hull down, so they will be only giving you that one. But T34, main weak spot shooting from the front, that machine gun port on that massive commander's hatch. But it actually gets a lot more interesting than that, because basically the turret, even from the front, obviously don't hit the gun mantle. But if you are shooting from here and you hit the spots there, either side of the gun mantle, you will pen it with tier 8 and 9 guns, and even some tier 7 guns. I mean, the Tiger, the long 88 on the Tiger, will pen it. That gun will pen it. So that makes it very, very interesting, because you can't get hull down like you can in a 32 or in a fully upgraded 29 as consistently as you can. Then the gun, 4 rounds a minute. Now this seems dreadful, but this and the Lurva actually have basically the same rate of fire. Well, sorry, the same damage per minute, even though this has a lower rate of fire. 400 damage is very, very good on a tier 8 tank. I mean, until they add the Russian tanks, that's just not the sort of thing we're capable of on this game. 0.34 accuracy, it's not terrible. I mean, fully aimed, this is not an inaccurate gun. It's not. It's more German than it is American. I mean, at this sort of tier, I mean, if you look at the T32 and the T29 gun, it's about 0.44 accuracy, or something like that. It might actually be higher than that. 0.4, sorry, and 0.4, it's like 0.45 or 0.44 on the T29. It's a horrendously inaccurate gun, which means this, bearing in mind it's a bigger gun, so therefore should realistically be heading towards being more inaccurate, actually is a pleasant surprise. But the aim time is 3.4 seconds. That's not very nice. That is, you feel that aim time, you really do. You feel the amount of time you have to be stuck out there. Then adding to it is the fact that the aim circle gets massive. This is not a slow tank. It's not a fast tank. This will not keep up with a Cromwell or even a Centurion, which have a max speed limit. This will go quite fast there, especially if you go downhill or across a flat ground. It will pick up speed, and the result of that, and having a turret, means your aim circle gets absolutely massive. I mean, when I'm driving at full speed in this tank, the aim circle doesn't fit on the screen. When you're in sniper mode, the aim circle is actually basically bigger than the screen, which gives you an idea of how long you actually have to wait. 3.4 seconds just isn't true. It's more like 4 or 5, and that costs. If people know where to shoot this, now a lot of people panic if they realise it's a 34. Me and my mates regularly confuse this with a T29. You'll see a T29 coming and you're like, oh yeah, no problem. Oh, that was 400 damage, that was a 34. Whoops. Now, don't do that, basically. Actually, that's the point. I can recommend that. Check the tanks on your team. at the beginning of the game, you'll see it in whenever you're watching my gameplay footage. I always do this. Check the tanks. You need to make sure what you know what you're running into, because there are a couple of tanks that look alike. 248 pen. That's good. I mean, that's very good. I mean, that's Jagdpanther 2 pen territory. That is tier 9 and 10 heavy tank and medium tank territory. Tier 10 for the medium. That is very, very good pen. Now, 297, it's not a massive improvement, but it is enough. I have put rounds through the front of an E3 with this tank. Admittedly, it was the lower of that nose bulb, but it still went through, and it was with standard ammo, not with premium. One of the big areas is with this tank is 18 degrees traverse speed. That is very, very painful. 22 degrees of track traverse as well, which is also painful. But 18 degrees of traverse speed in the turret. That is horrendous. That does mean that you can be circled so easily. Because once you fired... Now, yeah, when you fire, if they're coming out at you, you will have enough time to shoot them. But you don't have very long to aim, etc. So if they just rush straight at you, or they're willing to take a hit, they can get round you, and they can do damage. The time it takes you to do a full rotation is just... It's horrendous. You need backup if you're going to be in this tank. But... as you'll see, actually, because I've not really bothered paying attention to this, you do have a tier 9 turret, you have a tier 9 gun, you have a tier 9 engine, but you only have tier 8 tracks. Everything about this tank is still tier 9. 203mm of rear turret armor, by the way. That's one thing I didn't actually bother to pay attention to. But that might actually be additional armor. I've not really thought of that. This could be interesting. I've never actually noticed that, because it's 152 on the back of this thing. And that's got a big bulbous bit at the back. Let's go and have a look at the T29. 1 second. Oh, just went past it. T29 has 102 or 101. Yeah, so that actually... I really never noticed that. It actually has additional armour on the back of the turret. I'd never thought of that. That is very, very useful. This does mean, and actually explains a lot, to be honest, this tank does have that as an ability. So if someone has got behind you and you've managed to hide your hull a little bit, then you actually have a very, very good chance of bouncing off the back of your turret. Because 203mm of armour, and bearing in mind it's not spaced, but it is still armour, is very, very useful. I mean, especially in the back of the turret, because it's one of the weakest places of a tank usually. I mean, the only other people who kind of tend to put that much armour on the back of a turret are the Germans. So that's very, very nice to see. Now, yet this tank is worth angling. I'm not 100% sure what the side armour actually does come out as. But that front is very well angled. So if you are angled, let's say that sort of thing, you know, it's 45 degrees is the best angling for any armour. But not like this, because your side armour will just get penned. Oops, didn't mean to do that. If you're angling like this, someone will just shoot you in the side. If you angle about like that, then people will shoot you in the front. And what you then have to try and do, and there is timing that comes into it, and I've had people try and do it against me, and I've taken advantage of it, is if they're aiming at, you know, if they're your machine gun port because they know about it, or just your frontal armour, then at the last second, as you think they're about to fire, which does mean you do need to learn reload times, quickly flick and hope that they bounce. Now, personally, whenever I'm shooting at especially American tanks from the front, I aim more or less at the wheel. Because, one, helps keep them tracked. Two, most American tanks do not have any armour under there, and I don't know why. I've penetrated an E3 at around 500-600 metres. Admittedly with a Jagdtiger, so not exactly low pen, but through its wheel. Because I took a shot to try and track it, and it just turns out there's no real armour behind there. And I've tried it on 32s, I've tried it on 34s, I've tried it on T29s, M103s, a lot of them. If you hit the right spot just behind the wheels, aiming about 45 degrees, you will penetrate the hull. I'm not really sure why, but you do. And so you've not only tracked them, you've done damage, and if someone does try and do the kind of flick, they've actually given you an even easier shot. And you will definitely do damage, because you'll just hit them in the side. Which also increases things like ammo rack and fuel tank and engine chances to damage anyway. So yeah, with this tank, you really don't want to spend too much time in the open. Now, yes, you can get much more effectively hull down, and this has gun depression. One thing American tanks have is gun depression. British tanks even more so, but American tanks have gun depression, which is something the Germans don't have. So what you can quite effectively do is, now I can't actually show you in the garage because it just doesn't let you go that low. But if you're shooting from a low enough angle, you can't hit the commander's hatch. And you can't really hit the sides of the turrets either. So the best thing to do for this is not exactly cresting a ridge because you don't have that much gun depression. The only thing that has that sort of thing is the Comet with its -12. With this is to get somewhere where you're on a slight incline and then there's a ridge in front of you. I believe if you're attacking from the west, for example, on Westfield, on standard battle, and everyone goes up to those hills. Well, actually, it works in the same if you're coming from the east. The very, very north, there's a set of hills. There's a lot of good ground there that you can get yourself hull down, and mean that when you're poking over, you have to use I think it's 10 degrees of gun depression on this tank, and mean that they can't shoot your commander's hatch. Because that is where most people will aim for. I do recommend, if you can, try and aim for the side things. I pen them regularly, but the main thing I noticed it in was my Lerva, so 234mm pen, so maybe it's just high penetration and good accuracy that allowed me to do that. I wouldn't recommend it trying it in a TOG. Unless you're loading premium, I wouldn't recommend it in a Tiger. In any other situation, that commander's hatch or that machine gun port, they're the two places to aim on the front of this, or obviously the lower plate. But I think the machine gun port actually has lower armor than the lower plate, because I have killed both 32s and 29s in AT2s, not by shooting the lower port, but by shooting the machine gun hatch. So lower port, lower armor. Not sure why I saw that. Now, actually, what I have in this so far, crew-wise, our premium tanks obviously came with a full train crew. So I have Snapshot, put that one straight away on. Snapshot I think is very, very useful because, as I've said, you lose the aim circle gets so large when you move and when you turn your turret. It's just you have to get it now. Eventually I will put Smooth Ride on as well, but Deadeye is the other one. Deadeye I think will very much help with this tank because you've got such a big gun. You tend to get a lot of top tier matches in this, so tier 8 games. So you're mostly shooting at a couple of 8s and then largely 7s and 6s. Now, excluding the fact that you can take half the health off in one shot anyway, if you can hit an engine, hit a fuel tank, hit an ammo rack, if you can hit an ammo rack, it would be especially interesting. Now, that actually has reminded me, fuel tanks on this. Again, between the second and first wheel, at the back tends to be where I aim. Ammo rack is side of the turret or near the front, again, about second and third. Starting from the left, second or third wheel, about there under the hull tends to be where I aim, maybe just above the third, more so. And on, as I say, from the back, starting on the right, the second or first and second one for the fuel tank tends to be about where I aim. Side of the turret on these tend to be very, very bouncy. If they move the turret at the right time, or you shoot it at the wrong angle or something, there is too much of a chance of a bouncing. If you have the side of this thing, shoot the side of it. Now, yes, if you can only see the side of the turret, still take the shot. You are more than likely to pen, but you are almost guaranteed to pen if you aim at the lower hull. So, you know, that's where you want to do there. That I think pretty much concludes what you'd be able to tell you from the garage here. This is a very, very interesting tank, but I don't recommend playing it alone. Even if you are playing it alone, at least try and stay with your team or get your team to help you out. You know, use your mic, see if there's anyone in game. You know, request help and see if anyone says affirmative. This tank really does struggle on its own. Now, a lot of people have favourite spots. This is a tank where you can't just go to your favourite spot. Two tanks, almost any two tanks really, will overwhelm this tank quite simply, unless they... well, don't get me wrong, a lot of people are scared of damage on this game. If this tank is fired, go at it. go at it and take shots, because 4 rounds a minute, that's a 15-second reload. Now, admittedly, with a crew and with vents and rammer and that, it's a bit quicker. You're still waiting at least 10 seconds. In some tanks at tier 8, you're getting at least a shot off. I mean, in a lurver, you've got enough time to go out, aim, take a shot, hit him, penetrate him, and reverse out the way, and start reloading your next shot. And if you position yourself well, people can shoot you, reverse away, and then by the time they're reloaded again, you'll have had to come forward to shoot them. So you really can't run this alone. The best thing to do is to pop out, aim, take your shot, make your shot count as well. That is something I can't say enough. Make your shot count. You don't get to fire very often, and when you roll this high damage rolls, you really want them to be doing damage. So that's pretty much all I can say with this. I've got some interesting footage coming up for you, hopefully show you how I play it and how you might want to play it. Remember, that's the thing, it's how you play it. You might be able to play this tank in ways that I can't, and I might be able to play this tank in ways that you can't. It's all about how you can use this tank.
So one of the first things you'll notice here is that I have no audio. One of the things that's meant that this video has been so delayed, and probably why I completely forgot I had the footage, is the audio is ruined on the only good gameplay I have of this. And one other thing you may notice is actually this is probably one of the few occasions, maybe the only, that was not a good start, that I'm playing with subscribers. And as I say, I did try and say I will try and make this happen when I can. It's just usually the moment I got online I had several invites to a party or a platoon. And obviously friends who I've been playing with for, well, since the early days of the beta sort of came first. Anyway, so I haven't played very arty safe, and I've not played particularly smartly in this game so far, and you'll see I'm already down to 600 health. And so what I've done is I've played quite carelessly, but that is going to define, should I say, how I then try and play the rest of this game. Because this tank, now as I said earlier in the review area, that you know, the sides of the turret can be penetrated. To put a little bit more emphasis on that, I mean by high tier guns. Like, you know, if I'm being shot at from about a 20-30 degree angle by some tanks, then they will penetrate. You know, see here, I'll make sure you've got the shot in. With this tank, it is very important to make sure that you actually get your shot in, because that reload and aim time can be quite horrible. You also notice there, when I get the chance, I try and make sure I aim for areas such as the fuel tank. Now, you have got to be quite adventurous and careful at the same time. It's a bizarre mix, I suppose. Now here, I realistically should have gone forward more, but this guy makes it easy for me. Gives me a nice, easy kill. Now you see, I'm still on 632 health. I'm trying to play more arty safe, as I'd call it. Artillery safe, pigeon safe, scumbag safe. There's lots of different words. One of the great things about this tank, and one of its main advantages, is a very, very powerful gun. It's basically, I think it's the first gun off the M103. Now you see that I made sure I got close enough before shooting so I didn't have to aim, which is a compromise you can make, but obviously you still run the risk of just firing randomly into the ground. Now also you'll see, just before I zoomed in, you would have seen the back of the turret is actually really strong. You'll see there's a big plate on the back of it, and I believe that is like another 152mm or so of armour, which is a very useful thing. And it's meant that if someone does end up behind you, don't try and turn your turret to point at them. You have a higher chance of bouncing something off that flat bit at the back of your turret than you do, you know, anywhere else. Now you see here, I'm trying to prioritise targets. All in all, you just need to keep the damage being done. As I say, this gun, very slow firing. Now here, I'm probably being a bit stupid, and I'm very lucky that their artillery is clearly not paying attention, because I am in such an easy spot. If their artillery is down at their spawn base, where he probably is, you'll see here, the T34, because I'm looking down on him and someone else, they're just bouncing off my turret. And this tank does have good gun depression. There are tanks with better gun depression, usually mediums, to be fair. And as the comparison goes, this is very similar to a T29, But a comparison I probably should have made, up there you see, artillery comes in, absolutely wrecks my tank. Now there I thought I'd repaired the gun, but I'd missed. Anyway, comparison to make to this is actually the T30. Because this more or less is, now that was a wasteful shot. And you see, it shows my point of, you really do have to aim. You can't clutch shot as much as you'd like with this tank. But yeah, this basically is a T30, except you've got the 120mm gun, but with a slower rate of fire. Which is interesting, because basically that means that this is a Tier 9 tank destroyer with a slow rate of fire. And it's quite a good Tier 9 tank destroyer at that. Now you see there, I mostly aimed, I aimed as much as possible without taking the risk of letting him get away, and I was able to hit. You'll see a large number of these damage rolls are very good, and it's one of the things that I probably make this game that little bit better, is, oh, that's on the unlucky shot there. But you'll see all the time I'm using this little bit of a rise to make sure that the only thing shown is my turret and the gun mantle specifically. But you have to be careful, because the top of the turret, like you get on a lot of tanks, the commander's hatch, it's Wargaming's favourite little weak spot, is to build these commander's hatches and allow you to do damage through them. Now, I've been playing a lot of War Thunder recently, and kind of when you've been playing that, you realise it's sort of a little bit stupid. The concept of you shooting through an area where the top of someone's head might be, so you might injure a crew member, but you're doing damage to the tank. But this is an arcade game, and that's one of the things you get. You see, this is this game coming to an end. It would have been if I have no idea where that shot went. I could have bounced or something. We can't hear. But you'll see more of this kind of idea against higher tier tanks in the next game. But first, let's as this game comes to a close, we need to look at the final results, which should be coming up any second now. And if we look at the final bat results screen here, you'll see I managed to do 4,257 damage and 4 kills, which is not terrible at all. But the more impressive things that come with, and it is one of the main reasons to have a premium tank, is that 136,000 coins. And that isn't the best game you'll ever have in a T34. I've done better games on PC playing this tank, and you'll have better games playing this as well. I do find that this is a good tank to work with friends, though, which I'll try and get into during the next bit of gameplay. And a shout out, I suppose, to Snakes345 and X9th Beowulf 13, who were starring in this video. And here we'll see the second and, I'm afraid, final game, because I really didn't have that much footage for this. But I felt it needed to be got out. And you see, this is a Tier 9 game, which is the more likely sort of game you're going to get in this tank, as it does not have preferential matchmaking. So you really have to start making the most of your shots and doing, see there, I wait all the way to aim and I still miss. And there is the downside to this tank, is you will see Tier 9, you will see Tier 10, and you will have to sit there and aim, which is why the turret can be rather nice. But you see, I've got a nice little aim there. I wait, and do I get the shot in? Yes, but I only eat his tracks. But someone hits me from a distance and only damages my tracks, which is very useful. And so one of the things you've got to do with this tank is you've really got to put the gun depression and the turret front to work. And where I was, clearly wasn't going to do it, and so I decided, for whatever reason, right, time to move. You'll see this bit of road here actually does give me a nice little view down. Nice shot into the tracks, kept in track, so that will also mean that anyone doing damage now will also be giving me tracking damage. This tank, I personally really like it, which is, as I say, why I have it on PC. I bought on PC when I first set up this computer, which I've been doing this video editing on, and yet I actually prefer Xbox, which is an interesting point to make for all those people who play PC and never played Xbox. Really, honestly, give it a go on Xbox before you comment too much. Now, quite stupidly there, I'd actually aimed in before I'd gone round the corner, and I was zoomed in. I hadn't realised. Went round the corner, and there was someone waiting there. But you see, I pull slightly further back before going round, and I wait. I don't go out as I've reloaded. I go out just before I've reloaded. And this allows me to get out and then be ready to fire as I then pop out. And that is the, if you want to call it, trick I suppose, to what you call exchange of fires. So this Jagdpanther 2, I've no idea why he left his side to me. And here we get a very interesting Jagdtiger. I have no idea what this guy ends up doing. But yeah, so you see this gun, it's accurate if you fully aim to some extent. You know, see that I wasn't fully aimed there. You'll see, just there, you'll see, although you can't hear it this time, you'll see an example of what I was saying about people shoot the back of that spot and they bounce because it's quite difficult to hit. And so the guy's trying to aim up, and yet, there you go, he starts doing damage. But I know the person behind me is shooting him, and that's why I'm reversing to try and push him back in the way for the person behind me. This entire time he keeps shooting and bouncing. Obviously we can't hear it, unfortunately, but he kept bouncing off that back bit. Now that's a fully upgraded Jagdtiger, and he's just taken a lot of damage from me. Now, there I bounce off, was arguably quite unlucky, and for some bizarre reason these two just turn around, and not being one to waste a good opportunity. I take this, and again, this is a good spot for this because you can look down with your turret. And nice rear end, 435 damage. One of the mechanics, and I can't remember if I can guarantee this, but as far as I'm aware, the more penetration you have as compared to the amount of armor is a multiplier for how much damage you'll do. Now there, didn't aim, probably should have, but I got the kill, relatively lucky. As I say, this tank, it does all come down to this gun. This gun is basically the only reason to have this tank. I mean, it's not that fast, it's not that well armoured, it's not got a good rate of fire, you know. Oh, taking a hit from artillery there. And as you can see, the turret turns incredibly slowly, and I recently, not that long ago, managed to circle one of these in a comet twice before his gun was even able to get near to me, and that was because I messed up and went over a bit of a rock. And if I hadn't done that, I probably would have been fine. Now this game's coming to an end again. We've just got the artillery left. But you see, I'm not doing a bad speed. I am hitting 30 kilometers an hour. And over a flat, I think you can hit about 36. And you will more or less stay there. You see there, I was occasionally hitting 34. I mean, it's quite nimble, but it's not, you know, the French heavy tanks, if you can call them heavy tanks, are quite fast. This doesn't have that. This just has the gun and the turret. But if you can look down with the turret and use its gun depression, it almost makes the turret stronger because the commander's hatch is harder to hit. It's at an angle, and the top of the turret is also just above the gun mantle is also penetrable. Right, so this game's coming to an end. Yet again, I think this was another one playing with viewers, and we'll move on to the final results. Let's see, I only did 3,200 damage in this one, but I got about the same amount of XP, and I think I got a little bit more credits. I think 4,000 more credits. And, oh god, start time. I did this game at 9 o'clock. Sorry, no, 11 o'clock. Jeez, I can't count. Yep, Snake Freak and Beowulf again. This was in a tier 9 game, and this is the thing that why I like this tank. Is a lot of people say, well, get the IS-6 because the IS-6 hits for a similar amount. I think it's actually got a similar rate of fire. It hasn't got as good armour. Quite frankly, it hasn't. And it will only say tier 9. Well, this will see tier 10. And so at some point, I will have to try and get footage of a tier 10 game just to prove it to you, because this can do well in tier 10. This gun, it's the gun off the M103, and as I say, the gun off the T30. It will penetrate tier 10s, and I'd say that is your best opportunity for making silver and XP. Is if you're being able to do well in a tier 10 game in this tank, you are not going to have problems when you then come down to tier 8. And it's a good practice. I mean, how many other tanks will you get that you can arguably compete tank to tank with a tier 10, but without having to do the grind and make a load of silver, even if you don't play too well? This is why I really like this tank. But all in all, it comes down to your decision, and you've got to question, well, do you like heavy tanks? If you like heavy tanks, would you prefer to be angling more in the open, or do you want to have to do the sort of peekaboo sort of style you should do with this? And that all comes down to your playstyle, really. Right, and I'd like to end this review with a thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I haven't done it at this point, but I will probably be doing it. I'll be probably putting some gentle music, some Beethoven or something, copyright free basically, in the background, to make up for the lack of audio, so I hope that wasn't too atrocious for you if you're not a classical music fan. I will try and have it as minimal volume. It's just there is a background noise of fans due to overheating issues in my computer at the moment. So yeah, I sort of wanted to drown that out a little bit because it sounds a bit crap. Now, in terms of these reviews, I've already done a couple. I'm going to be doing one after this, definitely straight away. So there will be several tier 8 tank reviews of premium tanks, that is. And what I need people to realise and remember is I'm not telling you which one to buy. I'm doing this so that you can see what I think are the strengths, the weaknesses, and the all-round playstyle and ability of a tank. If I think a tank is terrible, I'll tell you it's terrible, and I'll try and show you why. Which is why I've not done one on the IS6, because quite frankly I think it's terrible, but I haven't bought it to prove it. And I didn't particularly want to, but I know a lot of people wouldn't mind seeing it played. So once I get back onto Xbox, which by the way I'm afraid is the decision for when that could be has been delayed till January. So no idea what I'm going to do till then. Probably not a lot. So yeah, in January or whenever it is I can get back on, I will look at trying to do something for the IS6, the SU-12244, and any premium tanks that anyone wants, really. And as I say, the whole decision is yours to make. Don't ever let anyone say, oh yeah, this tank's amazing, get it. Well, it's amazing to them. It might be amazing to them because they've seen someone else do really well in it, and they're telling you it's amazing because someone else has done well in it, but they've never done well in it. The only person who can judge a tank is you, because everything, as I try and say this throughout all my videos, it all comes down to your personal preference. If you're a great medium player, then, well, you don't want a Lurva. The Lurva is quite slow and really not a medium. We don't have most of the good medium premiums, to be honest, because they're all on PC. But they will eventually come out, and at that point I will be looking at, hopefully we'll get the Type 59, because if we get the Type 59, I'm telling you now, buy it, because it's the most overpowered premium tank ever to hit the game, and I really do hope it comes in. But things like the Super Pershing, well, it's a medium tank, but it doesn't play like a medium tank. It plays like what everyone refers to as a pocket heavy, because it's slow, it's well armoured from the front, and it ends up being a bit of a brawler, which is not what a medium tank should be. That's what you expect an E75 or an E100 to be classed as, not a medium tank from the American tree. So I hope this helps you make your decision as to whether you think this tank is worth your money, and all in all, whether you want to even, whether you decided, no, actually no, I want to see either my next video or whatever, and make a decision off that. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's helped. If you've got any questions, please feel free to ask. If you've enjoyed the video, like it. If you liked my channel, then feel free to subscribe, and I hope to see you on the battlefield as soon as I can.